Hi, my name is Hagai Barel. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Orca Interactive, and today the deputy CEO of Viaccess Orca, which is a merger of an Israeli company called Orca and an Orange company called Viaccess. What we are doing here is Orange Pub Israel, and my work stream was about working with Orange, my relationship being part of Orca and leading Orca through M&A and investments by Orange, but also, of course, and more importantly, selling to Orange as a client and maintaining Orange as a client. And these experiences and way of working is what we try to pass here to the Orange Pub members. In 2008, actually in 2007, we started negotiations with Orange. It took a year and 3 months to do the deal. The deal was a very small deal for Orange. In the time of the 1+ years that we negotiated for our deals, they did deals for billions in Germany and other countries that started and ended during our discussion. So the machine that's called Orange, whether it's a $50 million exit or $100 million exit or $1 billion exit, it's the same machine working. And it took a year plus, and eventually we were acquired by Orange. We were put to work together or in cooperation with another company called Viaccess, which was a fully owned subsidiary of Orange already, which does conditional access, encryption of video content. And Orca came more from the engagement part, doing really the more products that turn the video into a service. So whether it's the full content management system, the UX, the recommendation, personalization, everything to do with the service itself. And so my experience was, first of all, my first experience was an M&A process with them. And the second is, and we'll go into details if you want to have questions. The second is working with Orange and Viaccess, which is to some extent not Orange, but it is 100% owned by Orange. People who, some of them came from Orange, so there is a lot of the culture of Orange there, so it's similar. So the main work was with them for 3 years. And then after 3 years of working as, I would say, partners plus, because we were both owned by Orange, but we had we decided, me and Francois, the CEO of the other company, that it's wrong to continue as separate and independent companies, and the right thing to do would be to merge. And that also took convincing within Orange, of course, and a certain process, but we eventually were able to convince them, and we established again, there are still two entities. There is Orca and there's Viaccess, of course, but the organization from a commercial perspective, the company for the last 2 years is called VO, Viaccess Orca. And so in the last 2 years, I've been working really much closer with French colleagues. If in the past it was independent companies, you had to work together, but more like a partner than day-to-day. Then today, or the last 2 years, it's more organization that the marketing, the sales, the G&A is one. Obviously, you have two companies, two entities, two reporting. Everything is separate from a legal point of view and perspective, but from a company perspective, the management of VO has Israelis on the management and has French people on the management. So that's another type of experience for the last 2 years. And lately I'm also working with Orange and spinning off a certain technology that we've developed here in Israel that has grown to be, potentially have a much bigger vision than just another product line within VO. And I'm working with them on spinning this off to really open a startup in Israel. So it's like everyone around the table here. So it's another activity that we've been working on also for a long time, and it's part of the experience as well. So I would separate the two kind of, one thing probably the most important, I think, at this stage for you guys is once we were acquired, and the plan was acquisition because of compatibility to Viaccess, and we could work together, they had no plans to use us in their service. A year later, even 7 months later, they started to reevaluate their system because it was failing and old, and the company that did the product for them was more or less dedicated to Orange, so it became more like it was Thomson, and they had a specific solution that was competing with us, but all of their customers were Orange around Europe, and so they became more or less a project manager for Orange, and in that respect, if you do a dedicated product, again, my perspective, to a telco, you're not going to be able to compete in a market. Eventually, you will be behind in your roadmap because the innovation doesn't come just from within Orange. While you can get a lot of experience, of course, by having Orange as your client, it's completely true that you have to have an independent roadmap. And in that perspective, they started to do testings, and so we had to sell to Orange, and we wanted Orange to use our service. And this is, I think, a very relevant point maybe for some of you. Doing business, not just M&As or things like that, mainly business. And that was no easy task to close the deal with them. It took also forever, and internally in Orange, and we were owned by Orange, internally in Orange you had people that were, if Roselyne remembers Georges Penalver, was pro the Chinese in the beginning, and there was, I forget, Lucas, anyway, there was another guy, Lucas, he was, no, not high level like George, but anyway, he was pro Cisco, and even Microsoft was there, and we were really fighting, and now it's such a huge company, and with all due respect to Orca, the TV service for Orange was then and still is very strategic for them in France and in other countries, but especially in France. And they did not intend, I guess, to choose Orca just because we are owned by them. If you eliminate Orca from the reporting of Orange, I think whoever sees the Excels of the P&L doesn't even see a change in the .000 something, and nor in revenue or expenses. So from that perspective, 54 billion euro revenues a year, with a capex of used to be, now with buying, I guess it's less, but used to be, 8-9 billion euros a year. They by themselves create an ecosystem that can fuel companies to IPOs and startup just if they are a client of Orange. So we had to fight. And so the experience is split into two. One is, and there are things which are related, which is way of working and culture, which is true for all aspects of what I experience. And of course, there's a specific way of working, whether it's business-wise, closing a deal as a vendor, or doing an M&A, which is a different thing. But there are similarities in the way of working, of course. So that's more or less my experience. The point around Orange in high level, then we can drill, is first of all, nothing's easy. Okay, really, nothing's easy. It's nothing's easy with any huge telco in communication side, and especially with a company like Orange. It has history of being, like other companies here, government-owned, but it's still, to some extent, government-owned. The biggest shareholder is the government. The appointment of people in Orange, especially CEO, is done by the government, and it's a pride thing for the French. It's not because they want control on communication. There is a reason Orange still has, I want to say between 2,000 to 3,000 R&D guys. Okay, not IT guys, right? Am I right? Even more. I mean, you take the biggest company in Israel, I'm not sure how much they reach in developers. They have a lab, like used to be Bell Labs, like used to the others. And I think they see it as an objective of also a social thing and a contribution to keep, because Orange is a government-owned, they have this, they're educating and making sure engineering is still happening, yeah, and that's a good point happening because they may be missing between on one hand investing a lot of money into this and second not creating enough innovation. Are creating a huge amount of people working in engineering skill sets that are continuing to work with it.
Very nice locations in Lyon and other places.
Beautiful locations, nice places to work, and really people, very skillful people, very creative people, very smart people. And I'm touching culture, but one of the culture's differences that we have from them, for better or for worse, is the innovation part. And these guys, while skillful and smart and even creative, France in general is the inventor of a lot of creation and creativity. And that's a difference you have to remember. So the fact that you may see different ways of working around getting things done or how they're done, which has to do with the culture and even innovation, doesn't, for 1 second, don't forget that on the other side they may not work like us, but the skills and the brains are there. Okay, the potential is there, and there are very smart people. And when Orange decides to do something, when they finally decide to do something, there are not a lot of companies that can do it like Orange. Okay, they just do it, and they have the power and the brains to do it. The thing with them is getting this decision made is what takes a lot of energy, and that's true for selecting a vendor. Okay, so like any big organization as well, there is politics, and that includes the countries, of course, but that's also internally into Orange, and that's true for any huge company, and especially one that's still owned by government, and it's part of the package. And when I tried to sell when this RFP started, we tried to sell from various to reach people, and we started to build like you would address an external telco. We would map the target people we need to convince within Orange. The same as you would do with the telco, with a bit more ability because you're from the inside. But still, the strategy, the tactics would be the same as acquiring a big vendor, a tier 1 vendor. And the tactic used, even though it was an internal company, would be the same. That's another point. You have to have champions within Orange. And I think that's where Orange Fab comes in. Jackie and Roslyn are exactly, if they're not the champions themselves, which I believe in most cases they won't be, but they'll definitely find you the right champions together. And it's through really having a good product that I think they need, and you still will need the champions. It's true when I did the deal, the M&A deal in the beginning in 2008, France started, by the way, with a CEO called Matthias, which then left after a few months when we started. And I said, well, the CEO is leaving kaput, no deal. I mean, in 3 months came Francois, that was the CTO of IPTV, and he continued it. And what happened is, at the end of the day, if you ask me, the only reason there is a deal between Orange and Orca, at the end of the day, I mean, many people involved, but at the end of the day, it's Francois and myself. So my point again is, champions is a must. It's probably true in any negotiations, but even more in a telco and even more in Orange. And why I'm emphasizing is this, that I think you have a unique position with Orange Fab. Because this is, I think, in my perspective, looking forward, this is probably the most important thing of Orange Fab, is to really be able to establish the right champion within Orange, whether it's a specific country or France, and for that champion to push you within the organization. And by the way, it's not one champion that's enough. In Orange, you need to have a few stakeholders around the table saying, they work in consensus, okay? Decisions, again, in general, it's not completely true, but decisions in Orange are a lot done by consensus, right? Am I wrong? You guys, if I'm talking, okay, and this means a few things. It means things take time because you have to reach consensus, and second, it means that you need a few of the stakeholders, the strong ones, to identify the one that can bring this consensus to the table, and so where you're a vendor. They don't take care of the shareholder part, so you have to take care of it. You have to make sure, because look, really seriously, Orange can also squash you like a bug in terms of resources and whatever, if without, not because they want to, just because your energy, your ability to produce is not even close to what they have to offer. And when you have one person on your side, they'll have 5 or 6 on their side. And so you have to really be, on one hand, assertive on of the amount of resources you put and what is the way of working, what is the expectations between you guys. And on the other hand, protecting your own roadmap and being a good provider to the client. Anyway, my point is that the team of Philippe Rosès, who is the guy who's leading this, and the team in Orca and today VO, there is love. I mean, seriously, there is respect. There is a lot of there is transparency. We are transparent with them. We are on time with them. We are tough when we don't want to do something, and we are open and flexible when we can. But things are on the table. And this relationship in the last, now it's already, it started when we, 2008 or 9 as a vendor, but they went live, I don't remember if it was 10, I guess. I don't remember when the new TV came live, but I think it's 10. Since then, we are on ongoing, including upgrades. You can imagine an upgrade for 5 million subscribers. And TV is what we call mission critical. Because if the TV stops at 8 p.m. during The Good Wife or a basketball game or soccer, people will. Exactly, and they treat it this way, and so I'm going again to what creates. This is post a deal, but it's no less important because a deal with Orange doesn't mean that you are home free. It's an ongoing energy. So, in other words, Orange, in general, in my opinion. And it depends what kind of type of products you have. As a client, is a long-term relationship. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And you have to understand that. And it's an investment of money and time and energy. And if you're successful, though, the fruits you get are... And it's not like China, which I call sometimes the gold rush. Everyone wants to go to China because it's huge. It's like a bit the gold rush. Not a lot succeed there. Here, it's not the case. There's a lot of success at the end, but it's definitely something it's not a story, it's real, it's true. So there's pre the deal and post the deal, and champions, again, also, by the way, the day after. And like any other relationship, I found that in Orange, it's true in the M&A, and it's true also afterwards, personal relationship, building trust with the customer, both on a professional level, but on a personal level, is important even in France. Although the French don't bring their personal life to business, they don't talk about money, they don't talk about politics. It's important to know, but on the other hand, I found out, and this is my personal opinion, it may not be, and you have to be careful, you have to understand the people that are in front of you. There is something about the strict management style, which doesn't bring your personal life or who you are to the table, which misses a lot and is hard for the Israelis. Okay, and this is a big main difference. It's hard for the Israelis. The consensus is a hard. I can now try to point out what's hard as for me. What was hard? One is the consensus process. I'm used to, making decisions and reaching decisions in a different way, and the people I work with reach decisions in a different way. And when there's consensus in politics, it's a lot harder to understand or to control, and that's one thing that's hard. The second is bringing the personal who you are to the table, and that's something that I didn't stop. Maybe I a bit. Maybe I controlled it a bit more than usually, but I was myself. Choose the words or the things. I don't speak French, okay? I didn't learn to speak French. I learned to say jokes that open up and make. So I come and I say when I meet new people in Orange. Then Jackie heard it enough, but. So I don't know French. They said, I'm sorry, I don't know. I only know je voudrais manger quelque chose, which is I want to eat something, which I say is for survival, especially here in Orange, because they're not known to be hosts. Orange, when you come, it's not the hosting part. It's a government. It's not like fruits and whatever. When we are doing the M&A.
some reason?
Yeah, I've been in US, it was a bit different sometimes, but you're right that they are more, it's a matter of when you're so big, you have to, there's a limit to how much you can, yeah, exactly, that's true. It could become, it could become easily the budget of an Israeli company, just the refreshments for meetings in Orange. But the point was, so that would break the ice, right? I would learn in business a few words, fait accompli. Chose it because sometimes this is the situation, okay? Use a lot of stories from my personal life to pass messages on the phone with Francois, for example, and others. Really shared a lot of personal stories or because the culture is different, share cultural statements. We swapped so many, slogans that we have in Hebrew. Do you have it in French? And sometimes they have the same, sometimes they don't. Regarding the countries, it's a bit more complex, and here it also changes, and I think Jackie, on an ongoing basis, can help more than I can now. But it used to be that corporate was very strong, and what it did, it could more or less push. And there was a decision a few years ago, mainly led by, was a change when Didier Lombard was the CEO before and chairman, was replaced by Stéphane Richard, and now it's more country independent, giving them more independence. However, at the end of the day, the budget is controlled in corporate, and there's a lot of money in corporate. And for example, we were about to lose Poland and Spain as a deal, and we had to fight again. By the way, after we won France, and this is just a few years ago, we found out that Poland was about to do, by the way, a deal with Nokia Siemens that was OEMing an Israeli company called Rovi. They started from peer-to-peer CDN and moved to do full IPTV. And I met them 2 weeks before to consult them, actually. I didn't even know they were competing there. They wanted to meet me, and we had a long... The point is that they were in the deal and in a stronger position at that moment than we were, because we were not doing sales to Orange, and we were relying on corporate. Corporate lost a lot of positioning within the countries. We were not aware of things, and we were about to lose a very important deal. So if you are in Orange and you succeed with corporate or with a different country, you still have a long fight to do to close other countries, but you have to stay in touch. You have to understand it's like a market, Orange. If it's 9 billion, well, it's not today because they have, and by the way, another thing you should know, Orange and Deutsche Telekom are not don't consider themselves competitors today. They're completely separate partners. They even have a company set up together called Buy-in, which is a company that does the purchasing for them on certain things. So they were able to think about it. When Deutsche Telekom and Orange come together to buy DSLAMs or routers from Cisco, it's a completely different power of buying if you are Deutsche and even Orange by itself. But if you're Orange and Deutsche together, and they're saving, I guess it's in the billions, maybe accumulated, but even every year. And what it does, it gets you closer to Deutsche Telekom. It helps. So it's not just bullshit. It really is. We, by the way, already have won an asset of Deutsche Telekom as a result of bidding and regular business, but help of Buy-in also. Buy-in is an independent company, by the way. It's not going to choose you because of your eyes, but still you have an advantage being within Orange, because mainly you have a reference that makes sense, you have a relationship that makes sense, you know the way of working, and that's where you get your advantage, not just because you are there.